Hi, I'm Bill Hutchens. What I've been doing over the last week is tightening up the script for The Art of Resurrection. That was a feature I've mentioned once or twice in recent weeks. And what do I mean by tightening up? So I read through it again, and even though it's fine, and if someone said to me, here's some money, go shoot it tomorrow, I could. There's things when you start to look more deeply at it that you really want to sort of, I don't like using lock in because you want to be open to ideas all the time, even when you're filming, but to really tighten up. I think tightening up is a better way of looking at it. For example, that script is over seasons. So you need to really stop and think what logically happens in this season. How long do you leave to make it seem realistic before the next season starts and you pick up the script again? Is it going to jar, jumping from here to here? Does it flow logically? And you have to make sure it does flow logically, obviously. So you need to really think about it. And there are other considerations, is it going to be sunny the whole time? Do you need an overcast sky? Do you want it to be raining or snowing or all these other things that you need to think about, and you need to try and get in the script as much as you possibly can for to be able to help yourself and anybody else working on the film, be they actors or crew. Let me just check my notes for the other things I did on the script. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Problem with having too much hair. Yeah, about the flow thing, it has to make sense. The last thing you want is for your audience to be frowning for some reason. And I think we've all had that experience where you're watching something and you find yourself frowning, even if you don't consciously realize it, it's because something doesn't feel right, doesn't feel logical, doesn't make sense. And something which jars and takes you out of it. So that's the last thing you want. I also thought about within those, within the whole script, but also within those seasons, what events could we make most of to enhance the story, give it more colour, more depth, more character. And they might be things like local festivals, annual big events like Easter and Christmas and whatever events are relevant to your story or the religions or faith or belief of the people in your stories, or, cultural history of the region. What events are there that we could make use of in the story, not to be a feature of the story, but to add that texture and richness to the story, which all helps. I've also been looking at the dialogue, and some of it I'm not very comfortable with, I'll be honest, and some of it is, I don't know, it feels a little forced or unnatural. The thing about dialogue is that when you read things and you play the dialogue in your head, it can sound great. But when you start hearing people reading those lines out loud, you sometimes find yourself cringing because it sounds terrible or expositional or forced or cliched. So while I've been looking at some lines and haven't actually changed them, I've just put question marks next to them as if to say, you know, does this work? I like to wait until, unless something really stands out, I like to wait until I can hear it out loud, hear actors say the lines, and that will let me know that something needs to change. The actors will hopefully tell you that when they say them, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't flow off the tongue, it doesn't feel right for their character, and you want all that feedback. And you want to work with the actors to get those lines right, because you need to make sure you get excuse me, you need to make sure you get what you need to tell the story or convey what you need to convey for that scene. But the actors also have a responsibility to their character, and they have to get what they need for their character. So you need to work closely with the actors to make sure that you're getting what you need on both the character and story level. That's the way I do it anyway, or the way I'm going to do it. In the past, I haven't always done this, hands up, and everyone works in their own way anyway. So there's some directors that don't do any of that. They expect you to turn up, deliver your lines, and they shoot the scene and move on. And in the past, I've been a bit like that, partially through a lack of confidence, a lack of experience, and partially for example, with Kin Spirits, because I was producer as well. I was, as I mentioned before, I had too many things on my mind, and but thankfully the main actors all were on top of their stuff, and they would come to me and say, this doesn't really work, can we change this and this and this? And I just, they were right. And I don't think, coming from a director training background, I guess I always had to learn step by step the techniques which work best for me. And you always have to marry that with what works best for the people you're working with as well. Because there's no point in me having everything at the expense of being happy working on the film. So like everything in life, you have to find a happy medium and work. I think the main thing I feel as a director is to give the overall vision. This is where we're going. This is what I'm trying to say. This is the story we want to tell. And within that, I think there's loads of room for give and take for everyone. So that's what I've been focusing on. I've made some tweaks to the script. I put in some question marks about some things to look at. I'm going to go through it again to just make sure that, for example, there's one scene in particular which bugs me, because no one who's ever read the script has said, "Oh, that scene's a bit odd," but I'm not getting it, and I think it's one of those things that when I get to rehearse that scene, it'll come to life for me, because I see something in there, but I can't quite grasp it, if that makes sense. So this week I'm going to look at that again. I'm going to pick up all the drives and things for Kin Spirits. We have to make a tweak to the credits. I mentioned some videos ago, and for reasons I'm not going to go into, the person who was looking after all that before is unable to, and so I need to find someone to help me make a tweak to the credits and export the film again and so that's what I'll do. I'll probably do something, because I've got no money, I'll probably do something like offer to trade, It's a small change, but the exports take time. But I'm going to give them a drive, a Mac Mini to do all that on, so they don't have to mess their own setup. I'll probably trade, if you want me in your film for a day and you do this for a day or something like that. I'm going to try and find a way which doesn't cost money, is what I'm trying to tell you. And those are the two main things I think I'm going to be focused on this week. Trying to find someone to get those exports done for Kin Spirits, looking at that script. The other script I've talked about in recent weeks, A Test of Love, I am still looking at that, though I hit a real block. And with me, when I get that, I put it aside for a couple of weeks and let it go to work in the back of my mind, and I'll pick it up again maybe later this week or next week. I'm also waiting for some feedback on a couple of things, and still working on ways to try and get some short content made. So, chipping away at everything, basically, which is, I guess, situation normal. Thanks for watching. It'd be great if you could like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you'd like to support me further, you can buy me a coffee. There's a link in the description below. I hope to see you in the next one.